Morning, guys. Well, today is day 66, and time is just rolling on. It's moving on. It's amazing. Let me pull this down a little. It seems to be a little bit too high. There we go. Anyway, so let's go on ahead and continue with our reading. The last thing that we read was that the body was made perfectly. You will be learning to listen to it and trust God's programmed signals. A scripture from the book of Colossians is one of the first I found that applied to the problem. These few verses were the beginning of some foundational verses that grounded the Ray Down workshop, and that would be used to unravel the mystery. Let us look at Colossians 2:16 and 20 through 23. Therefore, do not let anyone judge you by what you eat or drink, since you died with Christ to the basic principles of this world. Why, as though you still belong to it, do you submit to its rules? Do not handle, do not taste, do not touch. These are all destined to perish with use, because they are based on human commands and teachings. Such regulations indeed have an appearance of wisdom with their self-imposed worship, their false humility, and their harsh treatment of the body, but they lack any value in restraining sensual indulgence. The passage above is mainly a discussion of man-made rules versus God's rules. What does God really want for mankind? When God had called his dear children out of Egypt and set them apart so they would be distinguished from other nations as pure, holy, rich, and blessed, he gave them separate food rules. These rules were not only to make them unique, but they were to symbolize that to be in God's presence, they were to be clean. The external cleanliness system symbolized that the heart was to be clean. When Jesus came to earth, he explained that, prior to his arrival, the outside had to be clean. But now the use of external cleanliness to symbolize cleanliness of the heart is de-emphasized because Jesus has made it possible for us to actually be clean on the inside. Now God can be near us without the food rules. Jesus set us free from those tedious rules. Even without them, we can enter the most holy place, God's presence. Let us examine the passage in Colossians 2, starting with verse 16. Therefore, do not let anyone judge you by what you eat or drink. Simply put, you are free. Stop judging yourself for desiring and eating dessert in public. Likewise, stop judging others who are eating rich sauces and fat-filled meats. God has set us free from the food rules. Remember, Jesus described God as a father who would kill a fatted calf for the return of a prodigal son. So who are we to judge? God did not accidentally leave the basic four food groups out of the Bible. Remember the words of Jesus in Mark 7:14b through 20. Listen to me, everyone, and understand this. Nothing outside of man can make him unclean by going into him. Rather, it is what comes out of a man that makes him unclean. After he had left the crowd and entered the house, his disciples asked him about this parable. Are you so dull? He asked. Don't you see that nothing that enters a man from the outside can make him unclean? For it doesn't go into his heart, but into his stomach, and then out of his body. In saying this, Jesus declared all foods clean. He went on, what comes out of a man is what makes him unclean. It is not what is outside of a man that makes him right or wrong, clean or unclean, righteous before God or a sinner. It is what is in the heart of a man. Continuing with Colossians 2, resuming our examination at verse 20. Since you died with Christ to the basic principles of this world, why, as though you still belong to it, do you submit to its rules? Do not handle, do not taste, do not touch. These are all destined to perish with use because they are based on human commands and teachings. Colossians 2:20 through 22. This is just a continuation of verse 16, a continuation of the liberation from dietary rules by Jesus, and an admonition to look for God's will, instead of man's rules. So you are going down the right path if you do not let people judge you, but rather you look for God's judgment and what He wants. You are going down the right path if you follow Jesus Christ, who has just come from the Father and knows exactly what God considers important and unimportant. You are doing a good thing if you are examining the rules you go by in your life. It is good to consider which of them are simply man-made rules and not God's ideas at all. Diets do not work because they are man's rules. Man's rules may change the environment around you, as the content of the food may change, but God's rules change the heart of mankind. God will thwart man's rules so that we do not worship man, and He will make His rules work beautifully, so we will be drawn to His genius and power. Now let us look at verse 23. Such regulations indeed have an appearance of wisdom, with their self-imposed worship, their false humility, and their harsh treatment of the body. As long as you are feeling self-righteous about eating diet foods, then you are missing out once again. It is a false humility and a self-imposed worship, so you are missing out on true worship. It is tricky because man-made rules have an appearance of wisdom. It seems so right to count fat grams, but doing so never stops the heart from wanting more. The reference to the harsh treatment of the body at the end of this verse is a valid point. When you go by man-made rules, such as diet rules, eating large volumes of low-calorie foods is one of the man-made rules, you could possibly develop spastic colon, indigestion, dumping syndrome, which is diarrhea, and other conditions that irritate the body and make you feel uncomfortable. Verse 23 contains the first key to unlocking the mystery, but they lack any value in restraining sensual indulgence. Have all these man-made rules done anything to make you less attracted to the magnetic pull of the refrigerator? Would you agree that the opposite is true? After dieting for a couple of decades, have you become even more focused on food than you were before? And have you found it even more difficult to diet or restrain your eating? I often think that when I watch different people's vlogs with their diet routine and what they say, how that they're having to readjust and they're trying to fight from like eating this and that. One misses getting to eat hamburgers and pizzas, another misses getting to eat chocolates and carbs, and they're all focusing on macros and percentages of certain like fats and on intermittent fasting and bulletproof coffees. And I mean, I know quite a few people who drinks the bulletproof coffees, and you know, it kind of made me wonder, you know, because I looked at the difference between powdered creamer and butter. And most diets agree that you have to have low calorie to lose weight. And the thing is, like, powdered creamer is lower calorie. And zero fat. And yet butter is higher calorie by a great lot and has fat. And what I saw was the difference was in the carbohydrates, that there was no carbs in butter, but there is carbs in powdered creamer. And my thought behind it was, like, it doesn't make much sense to use something that's got more calories if supposedly we are supposed to be cutting down calories, to lose weight. But I guess like the bulletproof coffee is like keto friendly, and there's this other kind of diet called bulletproof diet, and so I guess it's got a lot to do with the fat and not so much the calories. But it didn't make much sense to me, and I have to admit, bulletproof coffee is delicious. It is, but I don't see drinking it myself all the time, So, but yeah, people with their different kind of diets. Another, I don't know that she's particularly on any one kind of diet, but she's either a leader or co-leader of a specific weight loss group, which isn't really a weight loss, but just a support group. And so yeah, she does certain restrictive foods. I think mostly she's just choosing to incorporate more vegetables in her meals. I think, because she's never really talked specifically about her dietary food. Not specifically. I do know that when she does intermittent fasting, because she does it too, that she'll drink iced coffee, just black iced coffee. And then when she's eating, she'll drink her bulletproof. So I really don't know what her plan is other than to cut out certain foods. I know that she's not on the keto, because she had said something about the foods that she eats, some of them has high carbs, and she said that she knows that's a little bit high for the keto, but any other way it's not all that high actually. So apparently she's not in the keto, but she's doing restrictive as well. And then of course there's others that's on the keto. I mean, I haven't seen anybody that's on the Paleo or the Mediterranean or South Beach so far, but I have seen one video of someone who lost weight just exercising and being vegan. And then there are so many ketos out there, so many ketos. I've seen a lot of ketos. It seems that keto right now is the big time fad and everything. And so, yeah, as it happens, there's a lot going on, different diets, and they all have man-made rules. And Grin was just giving you scripture that says not to follow man-made rules. And so, but I'm not here to convince you to stop, but it does make sense, as I'd said, what I was getting at here. The people that I have watched, they are more focused on food. They're constantly worrying about making sure that they are eating within the guidelines, within a certain percentage, making sure not to have this or that. And they find that if they don't really put the brakes on themselves, that they give in to binging and indulgence. And the one thing that I have found about the Ray Down, because you're focusing more on God and you're letting God take care of your weight loss, you're letting God take care of your attitude about food, and your attitude about life, there's no longer a magnetic pull to the refrigerator, as she puts it. There's no longer a focus on food. There's no longer worrying about how many calories am I eating, if I'm getting enough fat or not enough fat according to whatever diet plan it would ever be, if I'm eating too much of this or too much of that, and not to have any of that or this, I'm not having to worry about any of that. I can enjoy hamburgers, pizzas, cookies, candies, sodas, noodles. And I'm not much of a bread lover, but I do like dinner rolls, soft dinner rolls. So yeah, I'm not restricted. I can eat what I enjoy as long as it's within the hunger zone. And I'm keeping my eyes focused on my God. And as long as I keep my eyes on Him, He keeps my focus on other things. He's my diversion from food. He's my diversion from binging and indulgences and overeating. And my attitude about food has truly changed. We conclude that the more we diet, the more we focus on ourselves. This can prove to be a bad focus, as it gets us nowhere but feeling sorry for ourselves, which usually plunges us deeper into depression. In addition to focusing on ourselves, diet rules also make us focus on food. We get up in the morning thinking about what we are going to eat and what we are not going to eat. Does that sound like any of yous? Any of yous at all? We allow ourselves to indulge, so to speak, our lust toward craving food. If we have been doing that for very many years, we realize that we can actually become enslaved to this lust, which, again, is trying to feed that longing heart. If any of you can relate to this phrase right here, I urge you to please switch to the Ray Down and let God take care of you. To cry out to Him and trust Him and let Him take care of this for you. If any of this sounds familiar to you and you're tired, please, I urge you. This is only for those of you who are tired and this sounds familiar to you. It only refers to you, okay? I'm not talking about others that is so dead bent on whatever type of plan they're on and they believe that it is the plan and they're not tired of it yet. I'm talking about those of you that can relate to this and you are tired. Please try this. I'm going to tell you once again, you can buy this book relatively cheap on Amazon and possibly find it in the library. My husband mentioned about the library, so you can borrow it from the library. If you find it in the library, borrow it. Read through it, see if you like it, and then you can buy it permanently from Amazon for a relatively good price. And you can get yourself a used book that's in awesome shape. I haven't bought me a brand new book yet. So far, the ones that I have gotten hold of, because I end up losing them. I've moved a lot. So far, the ones that I've purchased has been in good shape. And as I have told you, you can subscribe to the Ray Down channel on YouTube, Remnant Fellowship TV on YouTube, and Gren Shamlin on YouTube. Those 3 different channels, and all 3 of them give you different segments and bits and pieces that you could grab onto and listen to, with testimonies of people who's lost weight, kept it off, their journey, and more guidelines of what you can do to fight obesity, overeating, binging, and other aspects of your life, because it isn't just about weight loss, but it can also be about alcoholism, tobacco use, drugs, stress, marital problems. And there's one video, I haven't watched it, but there's one video that's about how to fix your broken marriage. But I can guarantee you this, that everything that is spoken about is God-based. Comes down to one thing, letting God. To sum up the verses, God does not care about what we eat. Do not let others judge us, and do not feel self-righteous about following those man-made rules. What God does care about is how much we eat. And that is very much emphasized. It is in italics. He cares about how much we eat. Not what, but how much. God cares about and is displeased with overindulgence. These verses set the stage for the Ray Down Workshop foundational points, which are as follows. Stop dieting for two major reasons. First, it makes you focus on yourself and your body. Second, it makes you focus on food. The more you focus on planning, buying, preparing, cooking, serving, and eating the food, the stronger the magnetic pull to the refrigerator. In other words, dieting provides the perfect setup to accelerate your love for food. Once again, if this sounds like you and you can relate, I urge you to please switch over to the Ray Down and use the Ray Down tools for your weight loss, because I promise you, you no longer have desire to overeat. You no longer have the desire to binge. As long as you keep your focus on God the Father, you no longer. I've given you my own testimony of how I used to overeat on everything, how that I had a great love affair for food. I'm a testimony myself. I don't have those desires anymore. I don't. But I'm keeping my eyes on Him. Do not focus on what people think. Stop allowing people to judge you when you are eating pecan pie or regular foods of any kind. Every time you find yourself wondering what people think, turn your attention straight upward to God and look only for His approval. Similarly, stop feeling self-righteous when you have pulled the fat out of a recipe and made the food behave. It is time to relearn how to be righteous. Do things God's way by making your mouth behave. Now, once again, as I had said from the start, that she's also talking about the fat being out. But for the keto, there's tons of fat, okay? So you can just put this in reverse and just the same saying that in some ways you're actually indulging in fats in some ways. One person that's on the keto aims towards 75% fat in their diet. That's a type of indulgence. An indulgence on any type of food product, it doesn't matter what it is. An indulgence in any type of macrobe or whatever can have a bad side effect. God wants us to have a good balanced meal. He wants us to be satisfied, and He also wants us to keep from overindulging in anything. So, she says here not to focus on what people think. Not too long ago, I was greatly hurt because I was doing the Ray Down and I was allowing myself to eat whatever I desire because I'm allowed to. And I have been successfully losing weight. But yet, a couple people came against me saying that I would never be able to get what I'm seeking for because of what I'm eating. Because I eat a lot of carbs in my meals. And they were so bent against me eating so much carbs and even eating sugars. And they seriously felt that I would not lose weight. And it hurt me because they didn't have enough faith in what I was doing. But yet I continued to support them even though I'm against their type of diet plan. But I was still supporting them, encouraging them to keep up the great work. And it hurt, you know. I had actually let it get to me, to the point that I had done a video, a live stream, and I ranted. But I wasn't even wanting to talk about it originally. But it was pulled out of me, and I just started letting it flow. And it bothered me for so long, because they didn't even have enough trust and faith that it was very much possible that me doing the Rae down and eating whatever I enjoyed, I could still lose weight too. That's one reason why that I started reading this book, so that for anybody who's got questions about the Rae down and how I'm eating, I'm trying to give you proof through other testimonies that's done the same thing that I'm doing. And that's another reason why I'm doing the 27-day blind non-clinical trial of the Rae down, because I told God that I wanted to prove Him, and I wanted to prove the Rae down. And the Holy Ghost led me to do the 27-day trial, because, you know, He wanted me to do it until the end of the 90 days, that I was to step out in faith and continue doing the Rae down without exercising and trust Him and not even Rae myself. So even to date, now, I don't know how much I weigh. The last time I weighed myself was on day 62. On day 63, it was on day 63, because yesterday was day 3, so this is day 4, so it was 62. On day 62 was the last time I weighed myself, and I was 207, which meant that I had lost 10 pounds total in 2 months. In just a little over 2 months, I'd lost 10 pounds. And altogether, because 3 months ago when I'd done a video, I was actually 220. So in reality, I had lost a total of 13 pounds in 3 months. But I hadn't really seriously focused. I was doing the Rae down during my Kick It series, but I wasn't deeply transformed yet. I had to continue reading this book to get my focus right. And so now I am doing it completely through God. Not just the principles of trying to wait for the hunger and just eating within the hunger zone, but truly giving it over to God so that I wouldn't have the problem of wanting more than what my body needs. That's what was kind of hurting me, because thinking that I could eat whatever I wanted and forgetting the fact that I had to wait for true hunger and that I had to give it completely over to God, I was allowing myself to go and get myself candy or to eat the big mouth stuff that's over here. So, but now, with my focus completely on God and me reading this book to remind me of all the principles, things are even different now. And now I don't have the desire to walk to the store and get me a bag of candy or to eat some of Big Mouth's food. I don't have that desire anymore. I am waiting for true hunger every day, all day long. And I am eating within the hunger zone, whatever it is that I am desiring at that moment. And it's been proof that I have left some food behind on my plate because I'm satisfied. So I'm not going to let people bother me anymore. Anybody who judges me, I'm not going to let that bother me, because I know that God approves. and I know that I'm losing weight. And I guarantee you I'm healthy. Stop feeling like a failure. You have not overcome overeating because you have applied the wrong medicine to this condition. It is time to start over with new hope. You can change your heart's focus. If any of you out there who watches this thinks that you're a failure at trying to lose weight, once again I urge you, please try the Rae Down. Please. Now I have told you that if you choose to stick with any kind of diet plan that you're on, that you can still incorporate the Rae Down by just letting God help you. But she's saying that it's better that you completely trust God and not trust man-made rules of diets. So it's entirely up to you. It is so entirely up to you. She's giving you good advice here. She's written it in the book. Giving you very good advice. And it is entirely up to you what you do. Whether you stop the man-made diet that you're on and try the weight loss, try the Rae Down, or you stick to the man-made diet. And I can easily say this. By doing the Rae Down, what have you got to lose? I mean, you're already struggling with your man-made diet, having to readjust what you're fixing yourself, having to make yourself quit eating such and such because it was causing you to start indulging, because you found yourself craving once again. So you're making yourself stop. Finding that you're struggling with certain health issues while you're on this man-made diet. What have you got to lose if you do the Rae Down? I've given you several testimonies of people who have successfully lost weight and kept it off. I'm a testimony myself. And Gwen Shamlin has said, with scripture to back it up, why that man-made dieting is so wrong. So what have you got to lose if you try the Rae Down? Other than weight. And the desire to overeat. As I have said, if there's certain foods that you don't want to eat while you're doing the Rae Down, ask God the Father to keep you from wanting it. And trust Him, completely trust Him, rely on Him. And I promise you, He will help you. He will help you to not eat what you don't want to eat. I guarantee it. You don't have anything to lose by trying the weight loss, by trying the Rae Down. You don't have anything to lose by trying the Rae Down except your desire to overeat and weight. That's all you've got to lose. And you end up gaining so much more. You end up gaining more trust in the Father, more faith in the Father, a closer relationship with the Father, and a whole lot more wisdom. Let's go ahead and finish this particular chapter. There's not much left. Understand that this behavior you are tackling is overindulgence. Overindulgence leads a person to desire something on this earth to make him feel good. Our loving God will give you this feeling so that you no longer have to look for it from things on this earth. It is time to direct that desire upward toward God to let Him fill you, for what you are hungering and thirsting for is God. Another key to unlocking the mystery of permanent rate control. Making the food behave will not work. Admitting we need to behave with God's help is the beginning of the end of overweight. Are any of yous ready to admit that? That you need to behave? Not the food, but you. And that you can only do it through God's help. Are you ready? I'm telling you guys, permanent weight loss is only through God the Father and not man-made rules. I'm telling yous. And you wait and see. On day 90, people's going to be blown away with how much more weight I've lost. And quite frankly, I got a feeling I'm going to be blown away too. But I am completely, totally trusting my Father. Tomorrow I'll read phase 2. This video's gone long enough. I think the message has been good enough just with what I just read you. I know that there are people out there who are so tired of just eating certain foods. I heard one person say that they don't even need variety. Well, I hope that's true. Me, I like variety myself. As I've told you so many times, I had been bound. I had been bound by the love of food. I had been bound by man-made rules. And I had been bound by the guilt of feeling like I couldn't eat certain foods even when I did. And trying so hard to believe that by eating such and such and not eating such and such, I would lose weight and I would be happy. But I was never happy. I was never happy. I see people that's on these certain diets and they're losing tons of weight and they're so much happier because they're losing the weight. But how unhappy they are when they start desiring something and they give in and then they find themselves eating more. And then they have to make themselves quit because they can't live with the guilt and because they don't like what it has done to them on the scales and other health situations. I think the one thing that everybody can agree on is that by eating less of everything, in the end a person becomes healthy because there isn't an overload of any particular thing that can cause a reverse side effect, right? All of us can agree with that. Because with the Ray down, when you're rating for true hunger, I mean seriously rating for true hunger, no matter how long it may take for you to feel that first hunger pain, and then you stop right when you're full and satisfied so that you don't overindulge and become stuffed, your body starts requiring less and less food. Therefore, your intake is less. Therefore, there isn't an overload of food that your body can't process. Therefore, there isn't an excessive amount inside the body that's laying in the fat cells or causing the insulin to spike or whatever may be happening. There's less pressure on the digestive system, which means that you can use the bathroom regularly. There's less demand on the kidneys, which means that you can pee more regularly. Your liver is more able to function properly because it's not overloaded. It can more properly process the foods that goes into it so that it can exchange what it's pulling out of the foods for the body's needs and release the rest that is to go out of the body. Plus, on top of that, the body is more apt to be able to use the fat that's in the fat cells because you're waiting for true hunger. So your body is continually pulling the energy out of the fat that's been stored. And I'm not saying this because I know. I'm saying this because of Missy over here, the author, who's a dietitian and nutritionist, who studied all the ways of the body, knows. I learned from her. I'm putting less demands on my body by waiting for it to tell me when it's hungry. So therefore, my body is more able to do what it's supposed to be doing. And it's not being stressed to try to. I'm very thankful to my Father God, I really am, because without Him I wouldn't be able to do this at all. I wouldn't be able to do this at all without Him. I would continue to end up getting myself something to eat when I don't need it. I don't need it now. I don't. I've got more satisfaction out of serving my Lord. I've got more satisfaction out of serving Him and letting Him be more of a part of my life than I ever had satisfaction in anything that I've ate. I've got more satisfaction through Him. So, that's all I have to say today. And I do hope that what I read you today hits something inside of you in a good way. I'm not pushing you, I'm just urging you. You do it God's way, you'll be so much healthier, so much happier, and you will truly feel the freedom. And I can guarantee you, the specific foods that you don't want to eat, you'll not want to. Literally, you won't even have a taste for it. Literally, you won't even have a taste for it. Promise you. But you have to put your focus on Him. And let Him retrain you. Let Him guide you. Put your trust completely in Him. I love you guys. Y'all have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow.